So Brian Koberger was looking to commit the perfect crime because he was a... Oh, hello. Sorry. I was just preparing my new book. We'll be talking about that later in another video. Anyway, straight into the meat and potatoes today because we've got a lot to talk about. I know you've got stuff to do. I've got stuff to do. So let's crack on. But I must say, before I do crack on, you're looking absolutely fantastic today. And it's Thursday. It's Thursday. How do you do it? So look, Kaylee Gonsalves' mum has come out and thrown a cat amongst the pigeons, and not only a cat amongst the pigeons, but potentially Dylan Mortensen under a very large fucking bus. And look, we'll get to that in a second. Now, there are links in the description of this video. One is for Jules of All Trades, where she talks about this exact thing in a slightly different way than myself. And the other link is with regards to Daniel over at the Drunk Turkey Show, which is the video which spurned a cascading effect. And that is that, one, some people are going to be incredibly confused. And the second one being that I, for now, will not be appearing on his channel. That's no reflection of how I feel about Daniel. I think he's a sound guy. I just feel that due to the current situation, it would be unwise for me and him to engage in a conversation. But anyway, so what has been said? Well, there's a lot of confusion at the moment because it would seem that some of the things that Kaylee's mum has come out, that's Christy, it seems to contradict things that were stated earlier on. There are some things that have clarified certain elements of the case, such as the IDs that were found inside a glove, inside of a box, inside of another box and a glove, and you get it. There was IDs that the likes of Jennifer Coffin Dodger had come forward and said were connected to 1122 King Road, and that kind of got embellished and twisted and packaged to the point where it was the IDs of a victim itself, you know, as mainstream media does. And we're going to be touching on mainstream media in a second also because they have fucked up royally. And I feel that this might be a little bit of a wake-up call, but we will go through that very shortly. So what they're basically saying with regards to the identifications is that they are seemingly nothing to do with 1122 King Road. Now that could be nothing. That could be something huge. But we need to dig a little deeper, let the dust settle on that, and then come back to it. And that won't be today. But yeah, they're basically saying that their identifications were nothing to do with this case. There seems to be some confusion over how the Gonsalves family found out about what had happened to Kaylee. Obviously, we have heard from the horse's mouth that they found out originally via Kaylee's cousin, it would be, wouldn't it? Which was the niece of Christy. And that story had come across in a little bit of a different fashion at first. It had apparently been one of them, and it weren't one of them, we know that, but that's what they had been told, and so on and so forth. And there was this frantic, trying to find out what happened, and they had clearly said in that same interview that they didn't hear from law enforcement until later on the day. It was quite a clinical way that they handled it, which half of me can understand that because they don't want to, I suppose, say too much that early because they don't want to say anything that could be held against them. So look, I kind of get it, but you'd think there'd be a little bit more heartfelt. But there we go. So yeah, that's one of the big issues that people has. And there seems to be some confusion over the phone situation as well. Some confusion as to whether the Gonsalves family actually had access to Kaylee's phones. The Chronicles of Olivia interview done way back when seemed to suggest that they physically had Kaylee's phone, or that's what we was led to believe, and they were accessing her social media accounts. And it kind of points now that they didn't have a phone, but they were getting into her social media accounts. And look, there's two ways that this goes. And that is that can either be incredibly easy or incredibly difficult, depending on how the phone itself is set up. Now, if they're on a shared plan, that shared plan will not give access to the user of that phone's social media. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way whatsoever. And even when you can set up certain social media accounts such as Facebook, so in the event of a death, a trusted person can be chosen in order to give them access to your account, that still takes time. I've known people who have dealt with that process, and that cannot happen that quickly. So it can be incredibly difficult. Now, if someone has someone's iCloud account details, because I saw some comments and people saying, look, the sister had Kaylee's iCloud password so she could access. Again, an iCloud password doesn't automatically give someone access to all their social media. It just means that they can log into an iCloud account on a secondary phone. But what normally happens in that instance is that the original phone or the original number would then be sent a 2FA, which is two-factor authentication, which asks the original account holder on the original device whether they are happy for this new device to access it. So unless they had access to the 2FA, or there was no 2FA, then they still wouldn't have been able to access it from another device. I know people are talking about mirroring and stuff like that. I don't really understand what people are trying to say. You're trying to say that the Gonsalves family can hack people's accounts. Again, when you're talking about people's privacy, people's social media, and you're talking about the likes of Snapchat, Facebook, so on and so forth, Instagram, these platforms have to make it very difficult for a third party to get into. That's how they exist, with being secure for the user. So even in the event that someone has their specific password, it is still likely that without the original phone account and the original phone, they still may not be able to access that account. Anyway, I digress. There seems to be a lot of speculation, and it is a lot of speculation. At the end of the day, it doesn't make a massive amount of difference. At the end of the day, I believe that Gonsalves family are saying what they want to say whenever they want to say it. You know, at the end of the day, they are trying to, in their eyes, not step outside of the gag order, even though they are not held under the gag order. But the gag order exists. It may be that they have been told to retract certain information. There seems to be conflicting information now regarding what Steve Gonsalves said about the communication between the families and the surviving members. And again, there's a lot of contradictions, but I kind of understand how there could be contradictions. Does it make it right? No. And in effect, it kind of, one element of this surrounding Dylan Mortensen seemingly throws Dylan Mortensen completely under the bus, and that is with respect of phone calls that happened after the murders themselves. And again, I know we sound like a broken record when we talk about the 8-hour time frame between when it happened and when law enforcement were called, but when you listen to what the Gonsalves family are saying, it goes completely against what law enforcement are trying to say with respect of the state of mind of Dylan Mortensen after the event. And in effect, what this does, this information, when you consider it, it makes her look even more dodgy than what she did in the first place. And look, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that Dylan Mortensen is involved in anything. But what I'm saying is, when you look at this situation as a whole, it doesn't look good. And for anybody who wants to consider whether Bryan Kohberger didn't do this at all, or he had help and assistance in doing it, who do you think helped and assisted him? Who do you think may have... Let's put it this way. So Bryan Kohberger is 10 miles away, and he leaves almost at, say, a perfect time to arrive, almost coinciding with a DoorDash delivery for a start. coincides with a DoorDash delivery. Now, that could have been completely coincidental, or was it? I don't know. Was that the purpose of that, to deflect people's attention in that property and get them in a situation where they were dealing with something else, so he could enter into the property? There's a few things, if you look into them, they seem so coincidental, but they could have done a favour to someone who was looking to enter into that house around that sort of time. I've always thought about this situation as, why would somebody enter the house when they've just seen a food delivery? Because you don't know who's in the house. That delivery would almost tell you that there's potentially a load of people in that house, and then would you want to enter into it with the potential, and I've said this before, of entering into a house with 30 people in it, and they've just ordered food and taken that? That situation doesn't go hand in hand with someone feeling that they can safely enter this property, only armed with a fixed blade weapon, and do this crime. It seems very bizarre to me. It seems very bizarre. But if you reverse up a little bit and think, well, hold on, what if they knew who was in the house? They knew exactly who was there, when they was there, and also that this delivery was going to happen and when it was going to happen. And it just so happens that they must have entered into that property relatively at the same time as this delivery was taking place. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, we've got a lot of things going on. And the more you look into things and the more you hear things, the more sketchy the likes of Dylan Mortensen become. And that's not just me. It's, I'm not making shit up. It just goes that way. And I know people won't like it. And I know people get upset whenever you question anything. But look, at the end of the day, Bryan Kohberger is incarcerated. He's being charged with this crime. And two of the massive questions that has to be completely answered in this is, did he do it? Did he do it alone? And for me, when you remove all of the information that is coming out from mainstream media, which we're going to touch on now, and you remove everything that's been said about him and you just look at it bare bones, so without the mainstream media saying he's a cannibal, he's a fucking cannibal, eating people, vegan who's eating people, and, he's a monster, he's a sketchy person, he's a woman hater, he's an incel. When you take all the Ashley Banfield narrative out of it, the Nancy Grace out of it, the Jennifer Coffin Dodger out of it, and remove all of that and just look at everything that comes from everywhere else, you then have a very different picture of him. And look, this is what's going on now. So this is with respect of the court hearing and whether they can have cameras in there. We all want to be able to see it. The main reason I want to see it is so I can see that the actual trial itself is being handled a lot better than what we've seen handled, everything else being handled. We want to see it firsthand. So when they bring things up, you can walk away from this case knowing that whatever the outcome, it was the right outcome. Because I'm in this process now of trying to think, right, so if you didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, and all you heard later on down the line was he was found guilty and we're now going to shoot him, how would you feel about it? Would you feel that there was closure? Would you be happy to not see anything, see that as an outcome? So it says, look, basically comes now Bryan C. Kohberger by and through their attorney J. Weston Lodson, Chief Deputy Litigation, and hereby provides the fellow memorandum on the use of cameras during the hearing in this case. This court should limit media coverage of this case to protect Sixth Amendment interests. This court should permit the media to use cameras to permit unfairly prejudicial coverage of Mr. Kohberger or harass courtroom participants. So they should not permit media because they feel it would be unfair. So look, and the third point is this court should not permit cameras in the courtroom to distract courtroom participants from the real purpose we are here. This is the important bit. So the facts. Mr. Koberger's charge and subsequent courtroom proceedings have captured the attention of local and national news organisations as well as social media platforms. The court has previously permitted cameras in the courtroom in regards to this case's prior proceedings. However, given the sensationalised nature of the case, the audio-visual coverage has become material for news outlets and social media accounts to espouse their unfounded opinions. Following each of Mr. Koberger's court appearances, numerous social media posts have been made regarding him through Facebook posts, YouTube, TikTok videos, and a podcast. I wonder who they're giving a fucking nod to there, Dateline. Each video attempts to analyse Mr. Koberger's demeanour by observing his body language from one court appearance and describing him using phrases such as cold iciness. It looks like he is just filled with darkness and hate, and he keeps getting creepier, among numerous other phrases. And then they've literally got some screenshots that I'll put on the screen here. These are actually included inside this court documentation. So, look. Mainstream media, you need to wind your fucking necks in. This guy is going to walk if things don't change. And look, there are people who feel that they now back his corner so much because of how he's been treated in this innocent until proven guilty journey that they want to see him walk. They want to see him walk irrelevant of what's happened, because you can't help but think, if this guy did not do this, look what people are doing to him. It's not fucking right. It's not right. And you've got people who are hiding behind the ruse that they are religious. You've got people who, like I say, claiming they are religious, but they're trying to crucify him like Jesus was crucified. Like you didn't fucking learn anything in that book. But anyway, let me know what you think down below. What is going on in this case? What is going on? I can almost understand the Gonsalves situation. The phone will never know. We'll never learn what really happened. All I'm trying to say is it can be difficult, can be easy. I'm trying to think in a situation such as this whether it would be easy, and I can't see it because I don't think they would have had Kaylee's phone. I don't think the family would have had her phone. And without her phone, I think having access to her personal social media accounts would be nigh on impossible. But that's just me. And yeah, the contradictive information, who knows what's going to happen. And Dylan Mortensen, all I know from the back end of that is Dylan Mortensen 100% knew something had happened that night, and there's no fucking way, hell on earth, that she was frozen in shock phase. I ain't buying it, never did, never will. I'll catch you all in the next one.